Now let's talk about Star Wars in general. There is eventually going to come a point in time, thank God, where the Acolyte is over and there's not going to be a season 2 and nobody's really going to remember anything that came from this, but I really hope that people do, because this is what Kathleen Kennedy wants, okay? She wants to hire all of her feminist allies in the industry to continue to ruin the legacy of George Lucas. Do not forget how atrocious the Acolyte was when this is all said and done. Laugh at it as you will, but do not allow it to be a memory, because the rot runs deep, and we have former Lucasfilm animation employees. So one of the people that unfortunately worked on one of those god-awful animated shows from Lucasfilm, okay, you had Visions, which is so bad it is no longer canon. Strange on that one. Clone Wars, what would that end up being? Season 7? Or was there a season 8? I know at least season 7 was under the Disney banner, and that was generally well received, mostly because it was a continuation of an ongoing story spearheaded by somebody that was brought on and is now, the de facto creative in charge of the stuff, the little Dave Filoni. Then you had Rebels, whatever. Bad Batch, Skeleton Crew, several seasons of those. It's like all of that hard work for literal dozens of views on a dead streaming platform. But that's also where, if anybody was paying attention to that stuff, they'd know that it is especially awful and pushing a narrative and an agenda where they can kind of workshop, okay? These activist types can go ahead and formulate their messaging on a smaller scale and see what ends up sees what can eventually make it to market with the only type of redrafting and rescripting that they actually do at the live action level. So if anybody's going to know the innermost thoughts of Lucasfilm, well, it's going to be somebody working on the animation side of this. And the former employee says he's embarrassed and ashamed to have worked at Lucasfilm and on Star Wars after the Acolyte. Ooh, bully, probably because he knows that those are the three people that Disney want in charge of Star Wars. Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, Steven Spielberg's personal coffee fetcher, and somebody who's not allowed within 500 yards of an SPCA. A former Lucasfilm employee recently shared that he's embarrassed to have worked on Star Wars in the wake of the Acolyte releasing on Disney+. The employee, who runs a channel called Knee Pain, detailed he was at Lucasfilm when the company was sold by George Lucas to the Walt Disney Company. Okay, so this guy was, probably working on at least what would be considered the good Star Wars content. He detailed, I was there when that happened and watched 90% of my coworkers get laid off. I was lucky enough to survive that layoff. I use the word lucky loosely, but I was there during the transition. I'll admit early on there was some hope. There was hope because they sat down, Kathleen Kennedy in the presentation of the company, and they showed us something we had never seen before under George, and that was a 10-year plan. I actually felt really good about that. They said they're going to have 3 more movies. We're all really excited. The video is private. Well, that's interesting. He then shared, left some years after that. They've been gone for about 7 years now, and I talked about this in another video. And the third set of trilogies came out, The Force Awakens, the whole thing with Rey. Tried to block a lot of that out. Actually, I don't remember the names of all those episodes that came out under Kathleen Kennedy. Well, I don't blame you. But I remember going to a crew screening and coming out not feeling it right, and then having the audacity and the nerve at work to say, yeah, I didn't really like it, and then starting to find out who the real fanboys are. And I'll tell you what, some of the biggest fanboys you'll find and the most toxic work there, because you weren't allowed to not like it. If you had an opinion, best to keep it to yourself. People would make you very, very uncomfortable. I was really not happy with the culture, the life there. It had changed a lot, he went on to state. And yeah, I heard recaps of this stuff, and this guy, if he's being honest, there's no reason not to believe that he isn't being forthright with the information that he would have firsthand, that yeah, there are people that actually do think that Disney Lucasfilm is producing good content. It's not the audience, it's the people on the inside. Okay, talking about the sequel trilogy, and while there's some people that are out there that think, any day now, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are going to wrestle back control of the franchise from Kathleen Kennedy, kick her out of every set, and, they're going to decanonize the sequel trilogy. That shit ain't going to happen, man. Dave Filoni, with his arm slung around Kathleen Kennedy, okay, they work hand in glove, man. They have since the beginning. Dave Filoni didn't get that quote-unquote promotion, or at least it didn't become public in 2023, right after stupid Ahsoka. Because he isn't working well with Kathleen Kennedy. He has already been the chief creative officer for years. That just got announced because he needed to have something good to say at the conclusion of Ahsoka. Just needed to show that there was some sort of forward momentum with Star Wars after that abomination. Knowing that, what are we going to do, man? Star Wars, at one point in time, was the most successful cinematic franchise in history. And there was nothing. There was nothing in the way of future cinematic releases. That is so wild, man. There was, what, a 10-year plan where you were going to have movie after movie after movie after movie until 2019, and Rise of Skywalker came out and killed that dead in the crib. It's been 5 years. 5 years since Star Wars has been in theaters. The last time Lucasfilm was in theaters, it wasn't for The Flash. If it wasn't for the Marvels, it would have been the biggest bomb of 2023. There was an Indiana Jones film that came out just last year. Does anybody remember it? You probably should, because it was abysmal. That was Kathleen Kennedy's brainchild. She wanted to stick around for that one, but trust me, guys, she's going to be leaving any day now. Any Friday, she's going to be leaving and then coming back on Monday, and she's going to leave whenever she's good and goddamn ready. When she has sufficiently made Star Wars a female brand that females just don't care about, because guess what? There are female Star Wars fans, okay? The old stuff, of the George Lucas stuff. And you know why they liked Star Wars? Because it was Star Wars, not because it was pandering to them. I don't know anybody who's actual fans. Like, okay, you had somebody at the inside working at Lucasfilm who said, I don't really know, I can't remember the title of any of the sequel trilogies, okay? Like, they were whatever, okay? The whole Rey thing didn't really stick or resonate with anybody, but you can't say any of that if you're working on the inside, if you're working in the belly of the beast. So that's one thing. But if you just go out in public, okay, if you go out and just ask a random person, rather, not somebody who's terminally online, not somebody who comments on this stuff on the regular, ask them, okay? Ask them about Star Wars. Ask them to name a character from Star Wars. You're going to have to get until you're outside of, what, maybe 10, 15 names before you get anybody from the sequel trilogy. Can you even remember? Can you remember any of the new characters? Like, legitimately, the Darth Vader analog, okay? Mirrors to Han Solo, Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker. No, does anybody remember? Do you know what a Finn is? Does Poe ring a bell? What's Poe's last name, if Poe rings a bell? Nobody knows these characters. It's so strange to think that Disney spent over $4 billion by a franchise that nobody cares about a decade later. It's so wild, man. It's a phenomenon that's going to be studied and has been studied for a long time. But ever since, you know, Dave Filoni got his official promotion to Chief Creative Officer, we've heard rumors that Mandalorian Season 4, we're going to be getting a movie, Mandalorian and Grogu. That's going to be actually the name, huh? Not a lot of creativity going on from the Chief Creative Officer, but no, that'll be great. That'll be fantastic. And then you'll get the Mandoverse movie, Dave Filoni's baby right there, where he can make Ahsoka the most popular and most important character in Star Wars history. I'm sure that'll do gangbusters. And then, of course, what we got on the horizon, guys, brace for it, the beginning of the sequel trilogy, if these rumors are to be believed. What do we got? Rumor. Lucasfilm's Daisy Ridley's Rey Star Wars film to be titled Star Wars 10, A New Beginning. Oh my God. Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, the feminist icon, directing the first of the new sequel trilogy. Can you believe it? Oh, frankly, I can. Let's take a look. So the rumor comes from the Film and Television Industry Alliance, who reports recent reports confirm that the official title for the film is Star Wars Episode 10, A New Beginning. So it wasn't enough that, The Force Awakens completely and totally ripped off A New Hope. Now that the part of the brand new trilogy, because I would imagine, right? Because Star Wars, well, for as much as they've destroyed everything else that is canonically Star Wars, normally comes out in a set of 3 films, especially when they're titled episode insert installment here. It's going to rip off its naming structure. Okay. They just called it A New Empire Returns, for Christ's sakes. While some sources previously speculated on the title being New Jedi Order, it is now clear that the latter was simply a working title. This film promises to usher in a new era continuing the story of the Skywalker lineage, which the Palpatine just adopted because she identifies as the Skywalker, while charting fresh territory. Where you're going to have Rey be the bestest at everything until she trains another girl to be the bestest at everything. Yay, great, charting new territory. The significance of this project being labeled as Episode 10 underscores its direct continuation of the Skywalker saga. Oh, stop it. Offering a seamless transition from the previous 9 episodes, which they're just dying to do, guys, because remember, TFA made over $2 billion. A great success, fantastic success. And then The Last Jedi made $1.7 billion. Not quite the same lofty heights, obviously. And then Rise of the Skywalker made just over $1 billion. Normally with the trilogy, you would want things to go upwards. That was the case with the OT, but that's all right. Lucasfilm, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. It's not like they're going to be pissing away another $300 million on a project that's going to serve as a stark reminder as to how dead the franchise is in a post-Acolyte world, in a post-Mandalorian being generally viewed as being a competent show world. Because they're going to get a firm reminder just how unprofitable for a mass market the Mandalorian is whenever we see that 2026, 2027, something like that, marking 8 years removed from the cinema. I guess they are trying to create some artificial hype for this return to form for the franchise, but if everything was so great and that we really needed to continue on the Skywalker legacy, why are you taking so long, and why is everything so deeply and completely under wraps? I'd imagine we might hear something at Star Wars Celebration later in the fall, I think early fall when they normally do this. We might get a title, we might get an idea of what the production schedule looks like, or I don't know, who knows, you know, in true Lucasfilm fashion, we're just going to get an announcement for another film that's never going to come out. But trust me, guys, Rian Johnson, he's getting his trilogy. Taika Waititi's still working on his film. Patty Jenkins is back working on Rogue Squadron, and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are definitely here to save Star Wars, and Kathleen Kennedy is the big evil, and it has nothing to do with anything else, right? Yeah, right. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.